Amazon never turns a profit, Paul, so what makes this quarter any different from previous quarters?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is there's a sense that there's an acceleration in the company's CapEx spending, or at least not a deceleration, let's say. You know, if you compare, for example, what Apple's spending, or I'm sorry, what Google's spending on its sort of cloud back-end hardware, and, you know, we've seen that in its recent financial filings, and compare that to what we're seeing at Amazon, you know, we're seeing a flatlining at Google, and we're seeing actually an acceleration at Amazon. And that's troubling because, you know, we've seen a widening in the company's losses in the most recent quarter. So you put those two pieces together, and it starts to turn into one that, you know, really begins to trouble investors. And we've talked about this a couple of times over recent quarters, and this is that same phenomena, you know, accelerating.
Now, okay, let's talk about all the things Amazon is working on. Video games, a wand to scan groceries,
right.
The phone, which was kind of a black eye on the report, set-top box, original video, delivery drones. Which of those things, Paul, do you think Amazon should not be doing?
I'd say most of them. The ones that that I found most compelling, is Twitch is at least interesting. You know, this is this sort of video game broadcasting service, I suppose, whatever way you want to think about it, is at least interesting and potentially has a monetization angle in the back end. You know, I'm troubled by what happened on the Amazon Fire phone. You know, we talked about it when it launched. It was, you know, sort of embarrassing. It was like they were trying to smuggle cash registers into people's houses in the guise of cell phones. It didn't work as a product, and it didn't work as a strategy. And so, you know, there's a bunch of these things that now are becoming serial, all of which are just a little bit troubling. And I think the grocery adventure is going to turn into a debacle in the long run as well. So, you know, we've got a bunch of things that I think are really troubling across all of these projects. And unlike Google's X, you know, sort of program where they do these kinds of wild-eyed projects, most of them don't see the light of day until they're somewhat further down the pipe. And in Amazon's case, we're seeing an awful lot of things, I think, much too soon. And that worries investors because it worries them and makes them think we're going to see huge CapEx attached to them.
What about employees? I mean, you've expressed concern about the culture at Amazon. What specifically are you worried about?
Well, it's not exactly, you know, the happy land of employees. You know, you talk to former Amazon employees, and they'll make the comment that it's a really difficult culture. It's tough. It's very aggressive. It's, you know, intensely political. There's a feeling if you don't get Jeff C or nothing happens. But so the reason why why do they stick around? They stick around because the share price is appreciated. You know, this is the whole trap of stock-based compensation. When you're paid in stock and the stock does well, you'll say, oh, the heck with it. I'll put up with everything else. When the stock doesn't do well, and it's done terribly this year, now you're saying to yourself, why am I here? Why am I putting up with this nonsense? So I think, you know, what's going to pressure Amazon to change, or at least do something a little bit more positive for investors, weirdly enough, isn't going to be investors. It's going to be employees saying, my stock is worthless. What are you going to do for me?
So, in spite of all of this, do you think Jeff Bezos will do anything differently in the near future, in the next year, 2 years? How much is Jeff Bezos going to change how he manages this company, or is he going to keep doing it the way he wants to?
You know, I'd like to think he's going to change, but I don't think so. I mean, Jeff likes to say he's playing the long game, and he's really testing the whole idea of what the long game is. When the long game stretches out to 15 and 20 years, that's not the long game. You know, that's something else altogether. That's some kind of almost turning into a strange sort of, you know, high market cap vanity project, and that's not what people signed up for.